هذا القرآن يوحدنا لطريق الخير يوجهنا الله تعالى أنزله ورسول الله معلمنا هذا القرآن يوحدنا لطريق الخير يوجهنا الله تعالى أنزله ورسول الله معلمنا هذا القرآن هو الهادي لأوائلنا.
إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له. وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن سيدنا ومولانا محمدا عبده ورسوله. الصلاة والسلام على خير خلق الله محمد المبعوث رحمة للعالمين وعلى آله الطاهرين الطيبين وعلى صحابته الغر الميامين ومن تبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين. يا الله يا الله اكتبنا معهم يا أرحم الراحمين. We begin with the praise of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who alhamdulillah has honored us, truly honored us alhamdulillah, to gather in Bayt min Buyuti, to be in his house, from the houses of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and the masjid. And wallahi, there is no more sacred place, no more honored place for us to be in this moment in time, in this blessed night, in the night of Ramadan. And wallahi, it is probably the most depressing of times every single year when you can count the days of Ramadan on your fingertips. And I've seen brothers, subhanAllah, and in MSA for example, where it would be our last iftar of the month of Ramadan. SubhanAllah, these brothers, you'll see them just weeping, just crying, because it's as though they lost their mother. Wallahi, it's as though they lost their father. And because really, when we lose the month of Ramadan, we should feel that void in our hearts. And we do not know whether that void will be filled again the following year, or if Allah Ta'ala will take our lives. And we will be completely devoid of the treasures and the secrets of Ramadan that are revealed to those who truly love Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Before we begin, inshallah, I would like to take just a few minutes, inshallah, for all of us to really just take it, because one of the blessings of these 10 nights of Ramadan is that our dua are more qualified, or they're more, it is more frequent for our dua to be accepted by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So just take a few minutes, inshallah, to make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Ya Allah, we beseech you, Ya Arhamar Rahimin, to accept our dua, to accept our siyam, to accept our salah, to accept our qira'at al-Quran, to accept our a'mal in this month and outside of this month, to forgive us for any deviancy or any sin that we have committed in this month and outside of this month, whether it is knowing or unknowing. We ask you, Ya Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to purify our hearts from any disease, any filth, any sin that may lay itself and root itself within us. And we ask you, Ya Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to forgive us and our families and guide our families, Ya Arhamar Rahimin. Ya Allah, guide our families and ourselves and save us from the punishment of the hellfire, and to make us amongst Ashab Jannah. Ameen ya Rabbil Alameen. It's narrated in the hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, actually, in the riwayat of the Sahaba radiallahu anhum, that there was one of the great women of the Sahaba. Her name was Ayman. That was her kunya, I believe that was her nickname. She was the mother of Ayman, and she used to be the caretaker of the Prophet salawatullahi wa salamu alayhi. And we know that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, both his mother and his father passed away when he was young. So he was taken care of by his uncle and his grandfather, and also this woman, Ayman. She played a very critical role in the upbringing of the Prophet ﷺ, to the extent that the Prophet ﷺ used to call her Ya Ummi. And the Prophet ﷺ, it was his regular habit while he was living to go visit Ayman and recite to her from the Quran and teach her from the Quran. And he had a special moment in time to teach his mother one-on-one. He took away time from giving his khutbahs. He took away time from dealing with the events and the affairs of the entire ummah, who eventually reached numbers beyond thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands. And yet once a week at least, regularly, it was the habit of our Prophet ﷺ to go to whom he claimed to be his mother because she cared for him, and he went to her one-on-one to teach her and recite to her the Quran. And so when Allah Ta'ala chose to take our Nabi ﷺ and to bring him to him, Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, and cause him to pass away ﷺ, of course this was a void in the life of Ayman. But being lovers of the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, Abu Bakr and Umar, and these two great companions of the Prophet ﷺ, they made it a habit to continue this habit that the Prophet ﷺ used to do with his caretaker, Ayman. And so they would go and visit her. Being an older lady, of course, they would go visit her and try to spend some time with her. So one such day, they go to Ayman and they find her crying. And of course, this was soon after the death of the Prophet ﷺ. And so their natural reaction to this was that she must be crying because of the death of the Prophet ﷺ, out of sorrow, out of grief, of losing the Prophet ﷺ. So they go to her and they say, just to cheer her up, they say to her, Ya Ayman, do not cry, because you know that Rasulullah ﷺ, he is in a better place. He's with the best of companies, the company of Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala. And so she turns to them and she says, do not believe that I'm crying because I'm not aware of the fact that the Prophet ﷺ is in a better place. He's with the best of companies. Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, in the rafiq al-a'la, in the best of companionship, Subhanahu wa Ta'ala. But the reason why I'm crying is because the Prophet ﷺ would take away time to spend one-on-one time with me, to recite the Quran to me. And in his death, the connection, that network between the heavens and the earth was cut off. The Quran, the revelation, the wahi of Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala in the form of the Quran was cut off with the death of the Prophet ﷺ. And reflecting on this, I could not help but be filled with tears. And having heard this, Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu and Umar radiallahu anhuma, they began to cry as well. And we've seen another example in the lives of the companions, and there are so many of them, where Aisha radiallahu anha, when the Prophet ﷺ was at the latter days of his life, and he became ill, so much so that he was so weak, sallallahu alayhi wasallam, that he was not able to go lead the salah. So his wife, Aisha radiallahu anha, she comes to the Prophet ﷺ, and the Prophet orders her, go tell your father, who was Abu Bakr, go tell your father and tell him to lead the prayer. I cannot lead. Sallallahu alayhi wasallam. And she was surprised by this request of the Prophet ﷺ. Not because of the quality and credentials of Abu Bakr, her father, radiallahu anhu. She said, you're going to ask my father to go lead the salah, yet he cannot spend even a moment hearing the Quran without sobbing, without crying, without weeping. He won't even be able to complete his salah. How is he going to lead the people in salah? So Allah told the Prophet ﷺ, he says to her, go tell him to lead the prayer. So we see the quality of Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu was so much so that when even a few ayat of Quran, he could not help his tears from flowing from his eyes. SubhanAllah. And even our Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, we see in a hadith of Ibn Mas'ud radiallahu ta'ala anhu, in which he said once, the Prophet ﷺ, in translation, he comes to me and he says to me, Ya Abdullah, recite to me, recite from the Quran. And Abdullah is surprised by this order, this request of the Prophet ﷺ, because the Prophet was the one who taught the Quran. And he says, Ya Rasulullah, I'm to recite the Quran to you. The Prophet ﷺ said, sometimes I love to hear the Quran being recited by others. And so Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, he begins to recite ayat of Surah An-Nisa. And then he comes to an ayah of Surah An-Nisa, translation summary, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, and remember the day when every nation will be taken from them a witness. And you, O Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, will be taken as a witness against your people. And so the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he says to Ibn Mas'ud, he says, stop there. And Ibn Mas'ud, out of his humbleness, he was reciting while lowering his gaze in the presence of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He lifts his gaze and he says, I found the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam weeping and crying. And the crying, he describes the crying of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was like boiling water. You know, you feel like it's in your chest, but you don't want others to really, know that you're crying. That was the crying of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It wasn't this extravagant, weeping that some people you may experience, but we can't help that. It's a natural reaction. But it was the humbleness of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and his example to us to try to hide those tears from others. So we see these examples of the companions and of course of our beloved Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and we see them, this powerful reaction that they have with their ibadah, with their recitation of Quran, with their salah, and we say, what is so different about them that when I hear the Quran, when I pray salah, when I make dua, when I make dhikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I am not moved at all to tears, but they cry. They cry plentiful. What is it so different about them? And so we see, subhanAllah, in the Quran, the answer. What is it that's so unique about these people, alayhim salam wa radiallahu anhum, that allowed them to, or their hearts to be humbled out of reverence of Allah Ta'ala to the extent, and it is manifested by tears coming to their eyes. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah Al-Isra, which is the chapter 17th chapter of the Quran, and verse 109, where Allah Ta'ala says, قُلْ آمِنُوا بِهِ أَوْ لَا تُؤْمِنُوا. So he says, he's ordering the Prophet ﷺ, say to the kuffar, specifically to the kuffar, believe in this or don't believe in it. It's your choice. Because Allah is describing the kuffar and how they're disbelieving the Prophet ﷺ. So Allah orders the Prophet ﷺ, قُلْ, say, آمِنُوا أَوْ لَا تُؤْمِنُوا. Believe or don't believe. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, because you know what, it doesn't affect me essentially. Because I have a group of people, إِنَّ الَّذِينَ أُوتُوا الْعِلْمَ مِنْ قَبْلِهِ إِذَا يُتْلَى عَلَيْهِمْ يَخِرُّونَ لِلْأَذْقَانِ سُجَّدًا. You believe or you don't believe, it doesn't matter. Why? Because I have servants. الَّذِينَ أُوتُوا الْعِلْمَ مِنْ قَبْلِهِ. Those who have obtained ilm, they have been given ilm. They have been given knowledge. As was mentioned in the first part of tonight, they have been given knowledge. مِنْ قَبْلِهِ إِذَا يُتْلَى عَلَيْهِمْ يَخِرُّونَ لِلْأَذْقَانِ سُجَّدًا. That when they've obtained this ilm, it moves them so much that they يَخِرُّونَ literally means they fall. They fall down لِلْأَذْقَانِ. Adhqan is your chin. Essentially, they fall on their chin. SubhanAllah gives this description as though they can't, their legs become so weak, they just fall on their face. Sujjadan. in sajda, in prostration to Allah. They're so moved by the Quran. When the Quran yutla alayhim, when the Quran is recited to them, يَخِرُّونَ لِلْأَذْقَانِ, they fall down on their chins in sajda to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then Allah ta'ala, He says, وَيَقُولُونَ, and when they're in this prostration, they say, سُبْحَانَ رَبِّنَا إِن كَانَ وَعْدُ رَبِّي لَمَفْعُولًا. They say, how perfect is the glory of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Indeed, His promise happens. لَمَفْعُولًا, it will happen. It is something that is happening at all times. لَمَفْعُولًا. وَيَخِرُّونَ, He says again, وَيَخِرُّونَ لِلْأَذْقَانِ يَبْكُونَ وَيَزِيدُهُمْ خُشُوعًا. Again, He says, and they fall down, they tremble, and they fall down on their faces, and they begin to cry. يَبْكُونَ وَيَزِيدُهُمْ خُشُوعًا. And that crying, it increases them in their khushu'. So the dua that we've learned, subhanallah, oh Allah, I seek refuge in you, min ilmin la yanfa', from ilm that does not benefit, وَمِن قَلْبٍ لَا تَخْشَعَ, and from a qalb, from a heart that does not have khushu'. And at one riwayah, as we learned, وَمِن النَّفْسِ لَا تَشْبَعَ, from a nafs that's not satiated, not fulfilled. In another riwayah, وَمِن الْعَيْنِ لَا تُبْكَى, لا تبكى, from an ayn, I don't know if that's the exact wording, from eyes that do not cry out of fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's another narration of the hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. From eyes that do not weep out of fear of Allah ta'ala. And subhanallah, we see in Shaykh Amir, he said, and we call him Shaykh because he's not here, because if you know Shaykh Amir, if you call him Shaykh, he gets really upset with you. That's why Abdul Sattar kept calling him Brother Amir. Because subhanallah, he's, mashallah, if you spend any moments with him, wallahi, you feel close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And you don't like to praise people, ulama, especially in front of themselves, but we praise them behind themselves because it's a fitna for them. But alhamdulillah, Shaykh Amir, if you spend a few moments with him, subhanallah, you'll benefit quite a bit. And so as he was saying, subhanAllah, this hadith, this dua, is so many lessons in it. And it's basically giving the channel, the methodology of you to obtain all these steps, these darajat, these levels of closeness and nearness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that you have ilm, that ilm leads to khushu', that khushu' leads, it's manifested in your eyes crying, right? And then your dua being accepted by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But also in this ayah we see that when you cry, yaziduhum khushu'a, that it's a cycle. Khushu', your inner presence of Allah ta'ala, causes you to cry. It's manifested by crying. And the mere manifestation of that crying increases you in your khushu'. So we see, subhanAllah, we talk about, mujahadatun nafs, right? Jihadun nafs versus jihad, etc., right? Physical jihad versus internal jihad. And we have these huge debates. What's better, what's not? The reality is that they're interrelated. Because the physical jihad of fighting against yourself and striving to worship Allah Ta'ala, it leads to khushu', it leads to the jihad inside of yourself as well. And it manifests in that outer presence as well. So it's actually a cycle, and they're both equally important. So subhanAllah, khushu', when they cry, it increases them in their khushu' of Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala. So we see in this ayah of the Quran, the reason why these great men, radiallahu anhum, and women, radiallahu anhum, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, why they were moved by the Quran, and why we are not moved by the Quran. Why? Because they were الَّذِينَ أُوتُوا الْعِلْمَ مِنْ قَبْلِ. They have been given by the blessing of Allah ta'ala ilm. Knowledge, true, haqq, knowledge of the truth of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that knowledge, it penetrated into their hearts to the extent that they were so moved by it that they were led to action. They fell to sajda, fell immediately to prostration in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So that's the first characteristic that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes these people, why they cry when they hear the Quran. Similarly, once the Prophet ﷺ, he was giving khutbah to the Sahaba radiallahu anhum. And in the khutbah, the Prophet says to them in a famous hadith, لَوْ تَعْلَمُونَ مَا أَعْلَمْ لَضُحِكْتُمْ كَثِيرًا وَلَبَكَيْتُمْ لَضُحِكْتُمْ قَلِيلًا وَلَبَكَيْتُمْ كَثِيرًا. If you knew, لَوْ تَعْلَمُونَ, if you knew what I know,
You would not spend your time, waste your time laughing and joking and wasting your time in amusement and play. Walakin you're spending your time, you would be crying a lot. And from immediately hearing these words, the narrative describes that the men and the women of the masjid, they lowered themselves, they covered their faces, and you would hear sobbing in the masjid. So we see again this quality of what? That led to them crying. لَوْ تَعْلَمُونَ. If you knew what I know. If you knew what I know. And the Prophet ﷺ, anything that he knew, salawatullahi wa salamun alayhi, he would teach to his ummah. Everything he knew. And as we know by Shaykh Amir's talk, and you don't want to cover the ilm. Of course, the Prophet ﷺ, whatever he received from guidance from Allah Ta'ala, he narrated to us. That ilm is there. What he knows, we know. Sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. So it is an ilm, that is the true ilm, that penetrated into their hearts, that led them to weep out of fear of Allah Ta'ala, out of love of Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, out of grief and sorrow and humility in front of Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala. And similarly, we see some other qualities that will go forward, inshaAllah Ta'ala. The real question I want to ask in conclusion, bi'idhnillahi Ta'ala, is, why is it that I am not capable of crying when I stand in prayer, when I recite Quran, when I pray Salah? What's wrong with me that I'm not capable of doing this? The first thing I said was the reason why, the reason of ilm, right? So the question we need to ask ourselves is, okay, we have this symptom, right? I'm not capable, or we have this disease. I'm not capable of crying. I just can't. I'm not moved. I see people crying maybe in the masjid. I hear these beautiful stories, subhanAllah. I just can't cry. What's wrong with me? The reality is, I have a disease. I have a disease in my heart. So the question is, what are the treatments? What are the cures for this disease? The first one I touched upon already. The first cure is to obtain ilm. For example, in Quran is Abdul Sattar, he said, when one of the things, one of the best ways that we can in attaching to the Quran and developing khushu' is what? Is to know what we're reciting. Learn the translation of what we've memorized, for example, and understand its meaning. And you'll see the effects of it. So subhanAllah, ilm, just knowing what you're reciting has a powerful effect on it being recited to you, you're reciting it. So al-ilm, the first cure is al-ilm. The second cure, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah Al-Najm, at the end of Surah Al-Najm, and he mentions this. He says, أَفَمِنْ هَذَا الْحَدِيثِ تَعْجَبُونَ. What's wrong with you? Essentially he's saying out of complete surprise. But of course Allah Ta'ala is not surprised, but he gives that form, that expression of surprise. What's wrong? What's the matter with you? أَفَمِنْ هَذَا الْحَدِيثِ تَعْجَبُونَ. You take this Quran, this hadith, this news that comes to you, and you say, man, this is something ajib. This is weird, man. That's just weird, yo. Why is this such a surprise to you? وَتَضْحَكُونَ وَلَا تَبْكُونَ. And you laugh. You spend your time in amusement and play, just chilling all the time, and you don't even think about it. وَلَكِنْ you should be tabkun. You should be crying when you recite the Quran. How is it that you don't cry when you recite the Quran? Allah is saying, how is it that you don't cry? How is it that you just laugh and joke? You come to Taraweeh every single night. After Salat al-Taraweeh, you go outside, you play, you hang out. You go to IHOP, you go to, Waffle House, you go to, McDonald's, you go to Taco Bell, whatever the case may be. Alhamdulillah, we're just chilling, man. Ramadan is wonderful, right? Alhamdulillah, because I'm with my brothers and we're having a good time, akhuwa. We give that excuse of akhuwa. One of my best Ramadans has been this year. And I don't want to say this, you want to be with your brothers, but sometimes you need to be alone too with Allah Ta'ala. Sometimes you need to be alone with Allah. No one else. Sometimes, we see Laylatul Qadr, for example, the 27th night of Ramadan. Subhanallah, it's a huge party, right? It's, everyone's there and it's a huge festival. Alhamdulillah, people come to the masjid. There's nothing wrong with that. Okay, nothing's wrong with that, right? But you know what? What khushu' did you get in that night? You probably hung out, chatted a little bit, right? God is great, Allahu Akbar. And then, I know this from experience. I'm not talking about anyone here. I know what I've done in the past. And I know that it doesn't work. So sometimes you need to just be alone with Allah. After Salat al-Taraweeh, spend time in the corner of the masjid. Of course, being in the masjid is better than anything else. But spend time alone. Spend time alone with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the first thing is ilm. The second thing, أَفَمِنْ الْحَدِيثِ تَعْجَبُونَ وَتَضْحَكُونَ وَلَا تَبْكُونَ, and you don't cry. Allah says the second reason why. The reason why you don't do this is why? وَأَنْتُمْ سَامِدُونَ. And yes, samid is someone who basically is in a state of ghafla. They're heedless. They don't care. They have no care for it. The second thing is also, again, they just waste their time. They don't spend any time with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and they think life is just to chill and enjoy their life. That's the reason why you don't have a khushu' in Allah. That's the reason why you don't cry, because you just waste your time and you don't think about Allah ta'ala. So the cure is spend more time reflecting on Allah. Spend more time, spend less time just chilling all the time, right? Hanging out and having fun, but spend more time being serious, being men. You don't always have to be children. You're men here, man. Probably 90% of you are in college. You guys are men, man. Soon you're going to be married. Soon you're going to be taking care of a kid, man. Grow up. So sometimes it requires that maturity for you to realize that, you know, I can't always be hanging out and chilling. I got to be alone with Allah Ta'ala sometimes. I got to be with my family sometimes. So, وَأَنْتُمْ سَامِدُونَ. That's the reason why. So fix it. Don't be samid. Don't waste your time. Don't be heedless. And the third one in conclusion, inshallah, and it will lead to my dear Shaykh, actually my dear loser, Faizan. Actually, he's my dear brother, alhamdulillah, my dear brother. The third one is dua. The third cure for any disease, in reality, any disease is dua. And it is of the most potent cures, ilaj, for any disease that you may have. Whether it's physical, whether it is emotional. Before you go to any doctor, psychologically, physically, make dua to Allah. And then the asbab, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given physical things as asbab, causes for their effects. And in conclusion, Imam Ibn Qiyyam, rahimahullah ta'ala, one of our great scholars of our history, he wrote a book about 150 pages, and it's in response to a young man who came to him and said, and he's giving a theoretical, like, what if there's a man out there, how like we ask, like, I know someone who does this and this and this, right? But you're talking about yourself. So he says, what if someone has this issue? I'm sorry, Faizan, I'm giving you just a minute, inshallah. What if there's a man out there who, they can't control their desires, etc., etc. What do they do? So Ibn Qayyim, he writes, instead of saying, yani, haram, whatever, he just gives like a 2-second answer on like some website, like, make istighfar, assalamu alaikum, and then they walk away, right? He gives a 150-page answer to one man. How do you cure this? And he gives 2 solutions. The first one is qira'atul Qur'an. Qur'an is of the greatest, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that وَنُنَزِّلُ فِي الْقُرْآنِ مَا هُوَ فِيهِ شِفَاءٌ رَحْمَةٌ وَشِفَاءٌ لِلْمُؤْمِنِينَ. That the Qur'an is shifa and rahmah. It's a cure. The second solution, he says, and actually this is the majority of the book, about 100 pages. He's talking about what? Ad-du'a. Dua is the cure for your disease. So what's the cure of any disease? Ad-du'a. So 3 cures. Number 1, and number 2, stop wasting your time. Stop wasting your time. And number 3, make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And inshallah in discussion.
هذا القرآن يوحدنا لطريق الخير يوجهنا الله تعالى